All right, welcome to the Remarketing Podcast. My name is Jerome Lewis. I am your host for today. The Remarketing Podcast is a podcast where we talk marketing, tech, business, and leadership. We talk these things for real estate agents, real estate investors, and real estate entrepreneurs. The Remarketing Podcast has two purposes. Purpose number one, to spotlight you, Dwan, your business, your service, or your product in a way that provides value to you, including market exposure and content creation. Purpose number two, to educate and inform our listeners. With that, we have the wonderful Dwan Bent-Twyford, America's most sought-after real estate investor. Dwan started as a broke single mom who had been fired from Denny's. She has personally flipped over 200. What's that? 2,000, right?
That's supposed to say 2,000.
2,000 properties and taught thousands of people how to become financially free. Dwan is affectionately known as the Queen of Short Sales and is considered to be the nation's #1 expert on short sales and foreclosures. She has written 3 bestsellers. Number 1, Sale Pre-Foreclosure Investing. Number 2, How to Sell a House When It's Worth Less Than the Mortgage. And did I miss one?
No, and my most recent book, I wrote it with Steve Forbes. It's called SuccessOnomics.
SuccessOnomics. Thank you for that. She is highly sought after and has been featured on Fox and Friends, MSNBC, Naomi's Good Morning, Colorado and Company, and many other TV, radio, podcasts, and print medias. Dwan also has a top-rated podcast called, which I just left. Could you say the name for us, Dwan?
It's the most Dwanderful real estate podcast ever.
Currently, Dwan and her husband are rehabbing a town. It is her craziest project to date. In a business dominated by men, Dwan has certainly made her mark. Her motto never changes. People before profits. Dwan, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here.
I'm so excited.
I didn't even get to read your bio before we popped on, so I'm impressed. I'm like, oh my God, we got a rock star here. And I want to talk a little bit about you, but I want to hear about you rehabbing that town. That sounds pretty amazing. So before we do that, though, can you tell us in your own words a little bit about you and who you are?
Yes. So do you want like my story, how I got into investing?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate.
I'll do the short version. So I was married. I was one of these people, similar to you. I was pretty wild in my 20s. So I always tell people, like, unless you understand, I turned 21 in 1980. And 1980 was like a decade of decadence, a lot of cocaine, a lot of champagne. It was severely, like, we were all about, it was just very decadent. And I was just right all in there, working at nightclubs, doing the whole thing. And I was pretty wild. And then, I wanted to have kids, but I waited till a little bit later. So I got married, had a baby. I'm 30 years old. My daughter's 8 months old. And my husband leaves, and we split up. Now, I have no husband. He took the car. I have no car. I lose my house in foreclosure, and I have an 8-month-old baby. So I was like at that, bottom of the come to Jesus moment. Like, what am I going to do? I'm 30 years old. I have a baby, and I'm literally dead broke. And so I took a minute, and I thought, and I was raised a little bit different because I was raised in Ohio and in the Midwest, and in the 70s, people were like, when you get out of school, you get married, you have kids, you work at a factory. So I was raised with the, get a factory job, work till you're 60, retire. So I was raised that way. And I was just like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I didn't go to college, like none of that stuff. So now I'm 30 years old, I got a baby, and I'm freaking dead, broke. And so I just took a minute and I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I have to make a decision about life right here. So my decision one was I can get a job. I can put Ayla in daycare, which is why I waited to be 30. So I could be the homeroom mom, the Girl Scout mom, the brownie mom, the field trip mom. I could put her in daycare and get a job. But I also knew if I got a job, I'd keep it probably till I was 50. I'd be raising her. So I'd have this job. And I thought, oof. And then I thought I could try something and work for myself. But I've never done that. So I don't know. That's pretty scary too. But then I thought, well, if I fail, I can always get a job. So I literally started looking. And the funny thing is, I didn't even look for real estate investing. I was looking for any job I could do from home, work for myself, and raise my daughter. And so this would be like in 1990. So back then, the internet was not what it is. None of this existed. So when you would look for jobs, everything was in the newspaper in the classified section. So I go to all these job interviews, and most of them are like multi-level marketing, and there's like 500 people there. And I see the value. I was like, no, I need money like today. So literally, Jerome, as I would have, I met these real estate investors and they said, oh yeah, we buy houses and we fix them up and we sell them. So I'm really naive. I don't know even what the word real estate investor means. There are no seminars, there's no HGTV, it doesn't exist. So my mind hears, okay, they buy houses, they fix them up and they sell them. So they decorate, and I love to decorate. I have excellent taste. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna decorate houses. So I literally went door knocking, found my first house and moved into it, thinking I was just gonna decorate, fix it up a little bit. But I mean fixing like paint and carpet and plants and blinds. But then it needed like full rehab. And I didn't know how to do any. I had no skills. I didn't understand what I was buying. So I went to Home Depot. I took all the classes and I learned how to put in kitchens and sinks and toilets and ceiling fans and pressure wash and electrical. And I learned all the stuff. And so I rehabbed houses. And my daughter was with me every day in the house, hanging out. And it was a blast. And I made $22,000 on my first deal. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the most amount of money I've ever seen any person ever have. I'm so rich right now. And I just kept doing it. And that was it. That's how I started. So literally, I honestly did not know what I was doing. And I was not looking for real estate. That just happened to be the most interesting thing that I heard. And now I've been doing it for 33 years.
Wow. So you got started in like wholesale? Not wholesale.
I know, I rehabbed.
Shortsale.
I rehabbed. So I rehabbed for like the first 5 or 6 deals I rehabbed. And then they opened up a RIA group in South Florida in Boca Raton. I saw an ad in the paper. Real estate investors were opening this real estate investing club. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to go there. And by going there, I learned about wholesaling. I had never even heard the term wholesaling before. So I learned what wholesaling was. So then I started wholesaling. And that was honestly what changed everything for me. Because I went from doing 3 or 4 rehabs a year to wholesaling 75 houses. And all of a sudden I have like $800,000 in the bank. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so rich right now. I don't even know what's happening. And I became a maniac. I just wholesaled for a long time. And wholesaling deals would be tight. So I started calling the banks to take less. And short sales wasn't even a coined phrase yet. And so I'm working with these banks. I'm like, what are you guys going on? Oh, it's called discounting, shorting, it's all these different things. So I actually trademarked and coined the term short sales. I have a registered trademark on short sales as it applies to real estate investing.
Wow, thank you. So that's where I was trying to get to. I was trying to figure out how did we get into wholesale, and I said short sale because sale.
But I was wholesale. Here's what happened. It's funny. I was telling some people this yesterday. My first short sale, I had this deal, and you know when you're wholesaling a house, and if you think you're going to make $5,000, like in your mind, it's already spent. At least I was still that way. So I had this deal, and I was going to make $5,000. So I get all the papers faxed over, and I find out there's all these extra fees. I'm going to make $1,000. But I'm still, this is still a really long time ago, and I need the $5,000. So I'm just like, oh. So I call the bank. I said, listen, you added this fee and this fee and this fee. If you can't knock those fees up, I can't close the deal, and I can't do it. And so the bank literally, she doesn't even put me on hold. She's like, oh, hang on a minute. And she's punching something. She's, okay, we can do it. Just like that. I was like, she just knocked $4,000 off in like a 30-second phone call. So now I'm thinking, I should have been doing this the whole time. The very next deal I get, I call the bank and try to get them to waive some fees. This is like 1990, 91, 92. Then I do, and now I start doing this all the time. And then on one day I thought, you know what? I found a great house, but they owed what it was worth. I thought, I wonder if I can get the bank to take money off of like the principal. So I called the bank, and it's a $7,000 house. The bank agreed to take $35,000. And I was like, what is this? I have discovered something. And that was it. I been crazy. And every deal I flipped, I shorted it first. And then I was making like so much money. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I trademarked it, and then I wrote a book. I got asked by Wiley Publishing to write a book about short sales. And it happened by accident. It was a super happy accident. And it turned into a thing that has made me hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, I am a book collector. How can I get a copy of your 3 books? How can we?
Amazon. They're on Amazon.
Okay. How can I get signed copies?
I actually don't have any books. I have to get it on Amazon.
Okay.
Sign it. So you get them, and the next time I know I'm going to see you, I will sign it and write something amazing.
All right.
I'll deal with a publishing company like Wiley Publishing. people that self-publish can print, 5,000 books. When you get a deal like that, you have to buy your books at like $13 a piece. So
Okay.
I had to buy my first batch of books, and then I was like, I'm not buying books for $13 and just like sign them, giving them away to people. Buy it and I'll sign it. So you don't get a whole bunch of books when you do with a publishing company.
Okay.
At least back then, I don't know. But I'm actually
Dwan, tell us how you became known as the queen of short sales. What was that like? How did that name
I
come up?
started doing those short sales kind of by accident, and a RIA group had started in South Florida, and I thought, a RIA group, this is a great idea. I could run a RIA group. I've been investing. I know as much as that guy, so I started a RIA group in a different part of town, and I had learned short sales, so I actually wrote a home study program, like the courses that you buy from Rich Dad. I wrote a little program, and it only had 50 pages. It was all about short sales and all kinds of examples. And I started selling it, and I sent it in, and I copywrote it. I got it trademarked. And then I realized nobody ever anywhere was teaching about short sales. And so again, I don't have the internet. So I have my own RIA group, and people in Florida from other RIA groups asking me to speak at their group. So I speak in Orlando, I speak in Miami, and I'm like, okay, because we all run RIA groups. And then next thing you know, I'm being asked to speak here and there and all over the country. Then I got asked to speak in Colorado, and my husband was in the audience. That's how I met my husband at a RIA, speaking at a RIA 3-day event in Colorado. He stalked me like a dog. And so then we've been married 20 years now. We just had our 20-year anniversary this year. And then Wiley Publishing, I don't know, they know Gary Keller. I was in Gary Keller's book, The Millionaire Real Estate Investors.
Okay.
Gary Keller from Keller Williams. He has a book
Yes.
that something about I can't think of the title. Something about real estate agents, and there's one called Real Estate Investors. So I was in his book. So
the Millionaire Real Estate Agent and the Millionaire Real Estate Investor.
So I'm in that book. I got my blonde hair back then. So
Wow.
I'm in that book, and then the publishing company says, hey, I saw you talk about this. I want you to write a book. And so it just led to writing about short sales. My book was a bestseller. And then, of course, I started doing short sale training, and I've done it forever. And I trademarked it. And then people started calling me the queen of short sales. So I trademarked that too.
Wow, that's amazing.
So you get a little nickname, trademark it. So now people call me, I trademarked the queen of foreclosures. I trademarked the queen of short sales. I trademarked short sales.
Nice.
Trademark stuff.
I'm honored to have you on this podcast. So I have some questions here, and I'm going to try to structure them around what we're talking about. So the next question, the question I have is, what is one thing about your success that you did not expect?
Honestly, it sounds like a stupid answer, but all of it. I literally decided to rehab that house instead of putting and I have nothing against people I always say, listen, I got nothing against daycare. I just waited till I was 30 to have kids, and I wanted to be that fun mom, the disco ball. Everyone was coming to my house. Like, I wanted to be that person. And when I realized that was about to have my dream snatched away, I thought, I'm just going to work for myself. So I honestly, when I first started, I thought I would just rehab houses, would wholesale houses, and that would be it. But then people were like, we really love what you're doing. We love your story. Come and speak at my group. And I was like, okay. So then I start speaking, and then all of a sudden I have a book deal. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to write a book. And then it became a bestseller. And then it just kept growing. And next thing you know, I have books and a podcast, and I have over 500,000 students. And it's just like, I'm surprised by all of it. When I hear people read my intro, I'm always like, who are they talking about? And then I'm like, oh my God, it's me. I'm really surprised by my own bio. Honestly,
that bio took me back because, like I said, I didn't get to read it until we were here, and I was like, wow, this is really impressive. So
honestly, every show, when I hear people read my bio, I honestly, a piece of me is like, they cannot be talking about me. And I'm like, you know what, they are. I've been doing this 33 years. I have made a mark. But still today, it still surprises me.
Okay. Tell me about an important lesson that you learned. What would you say is the most important lesson you've learned? Failure, success, what's the most important you've learned thus far?
You know what? My most important thing, and this is something that you and I talked about on my podcast, is when I started, there was no internet. There was no virtual wholesaling. There were no people traveling and doing seminars. There was nothing. So I literally 100% learned every single thing by the seat of my pants.
Okay.
So I tell people now, I'm like, listen, at your fingertips is every person that's ever wrote a program, that's ever done a website or a seminar or something. And I tell people, I wish I had had a mentor, because it took me, honestly, my learning curve was long. It took me like 10 years to really fully understand all the things I know now. And if I had had a mentor, I could have learned all that in a year's time by learning from somebody else's education.
So there's a couple of things. So one, right, I want to ask, because I'm a tech person, right? I want to know, you keep saying, you said 3 times now there was no internet. What was that like?
It was me driving to the courthouse and handwriting all the foreclosures. It was me using that stupid map book and learning how to get around in the city. It was me having to order a mailing list out of the yellow pages where they send you postcards, and you have to put the sticky things, the addresses on every single 5,000 postcards by hand. Everything was by hand, and everything took longer.
Wow.
So when
And
I can like send in my postcard, send in my thing, send to a company, they mail it for me. I mean,
yeah,
I remember sitting around with my daughter at night with her friends. I would pay them $5 an hour, and we would put labels on postcards, 5,000 at a time.
you mentioned something that I often hear people say. You said it took you 10 years to, like, basically you mastered it over 10 years. And they say 10 years or 10,000 hours. Like, so I just wanted to point that out really quickly. It takes like that time. And then you also talk about like coaching. Like, you're like, I wish I had a coach. And yeah, they talk about, I'm a millennial. They talk about the millennials and how spoiled we are. I know I'm spoiled. I know I got the internet. And then I know, like, thank God I could pay for a coach, because I couldn't imagine like all of that stuff that you're doing and going through, having to send letters. I'm telling you, I only did a 3-month span of door knocking and talking to people. I was like, I'm exhausted. This is a headache. So
I
wanted to
did
mention
that.
that.
I door knocked for a decade.
Yeah, see, I would, I'm a millennial, so that would kill me. So
I mean, now the thing is, that's why I always tell millennials, I'm like, listen, you guys have literally
yes,
every single thing. I mean, I had to drive 45 minutes to the courthouse, park, go in, take my daughter, handwrite all the foreclosures, every address by hand, map them by hand. Like, there was nothing easy about it. And look, and I always say, I wish I had someone like me then, because I bring people into 8 months of coaching, 18 months, and most of them make over $1 million in their first 18 months. It's like, it took me a decade to do that.
wow. So you brought me back to what I wanted to ask you earlier, which was like, how can someone become? So you mentioned a big number. You talk about your students. How many students you got again?
I have trained over 500,000 people.
500,000 people. How
Mhm.
can we, right? If I wanted to become a student, like, do you still offer that as a service, as a coach? Do you got
I do.
courses?
I do.
Uh,
Minimal now. I have something I call the apprentice training.
Okay.
And I just only bring in like 10 people a year, because it takes a lot of my time.
Mhm.
I always have webinars. I have really good home study courses, and they're really good because it's literally every single solitary thing. So I'm not like, oh, I'll buy my wholesale program, but oh wait, you have to buy this and upgrade and upgrade and upgrade to get
Mhm.
that. So if you're like, you want to learn wholesaling, I got a program. You want to learn short sales, I got a program. Want to learn subject twos, I got a program. Want to learn rentals, I got a program. And they're really detailed. But then there are those other people like you, like, hey, I really want you to actually hold my hand, and I do that, and I take maybe 10, 15 students on a yearly basis for that level. But people can always learn on my podcast. When they buy a program, they're in my little mighty network, Team Dwanderful. They can ask questions. So I'm always helping and working with people. But I do some hand holding, because I still like to see the look on a person's face, and I'm like, oh my God, Dwan, I literally made like $800,000 this year. Like, holy cow. And there's a lot of satisfaction in that, because I couldn't imagine that would be me.
You make me like, and I say this jokingly, but you make me feel a little bit insecure. I thought I was doing something for my few hundred deals, you know? Yeah,
Yeah, I know, but you're young. You're 33. When you're 63, you better have at least 2,000 deals under your belt.
I hope, because this is what I'm about to
Otherwise,
ask you next. I was about to ask you, how do you get up to 2,000 deals? How do you do that?
because I've been doing it for 30 years.
Okay.
You know,
I don't see
and
it. I don't have that
also when I
vision.
was
Jesus.
wholesaling, I would sometimes find like a group and wholesale like 100 at a time.
Okay.
So as you go, I mean, if I was only had 20 deals under my belt in 30 years, I would be like, what a slacker. So you got time.
Okay. All
If
right.
you have 200 deals at 33, you're on it. I would look at you and go, respect. But I meet people all the time. They go, oh, I do, 4 deals a year. And I'm like, oh, you're so cute. So talk to me when you're doing 100 deals a year, and then I want to hear what you're doing.
Oh man, wow. So that's awesome. Next question. Let's move on to the next question. Uh, Tell me, if you could start a business tomorrow, what business would that be? And let's make it specific to real estate, right? If you could change, and I know you've done everything, but we got short sales you talked about here, you talked about flips, you got landlord, you got lease options. If you had to pick one of those, right? If they're like, Dwan, we're starting over, where would you start?
Honestly, all of my new students, I tell everyone to start with wholesaling
Okay.
because it's the cheapest thing. I
Okay.
still to this day only give homeowners a $10 deposit. I sign a
Okay.
contract to give them $10. If everything falls apart, I lose my $10. If I
Okay.
tell someone, hey, start off as a rehabber, and then they mess it up, there's all kinds of extra things wrong with the house, they could lose, their entire life savings on a deal. So I still to this day tell people if it's your brand new, start off wholesaling, flip a few houses, get some money in the bank, give yourself a cushion, and then let's assess what it is that you like about real estate. Do you want to be a landlord? Do you want to own buildings? Do you want to buy a town? Like, what do you want to do? But I still, 30 years later, I still like people to start off with what I consider to be the safest thing, which is wholesaling.
Okay.
Get it under
And
contract, sell it right here, take that money, put it in the bank, get yourself some education, and then see what you like. Because like you've been doing lots of things in real estate, but you really enjoy the marketing and the tech and that side of the business. But that is a legitimate side of the business as well. So that's not any less valuable than someone that's like, oh, I own 300 rentals. Like, okay, that's fine, but that's still a portion of the business. And some people will like that. Like they'll get in and say, hey, I really like the marketing and I like the tech side. I like building websites. I like helping people be successful. That is a part that a lot of people go, I like that better than being a landlord, or I like that better than wholesaling houses, or I like this better than that. And I feel like everyone leans towards something that they enjoy.
they are, and I think that you have success when you start to like enjoy it. And like I was telling you on the other podcast, my skills, like I hire people that do the things that I'm not good at. Other
Yeah,
people are better with like humaning than I am. So I
yeah,
like to get those people, and I like handle the tech and the marketing and some of the other stuff. So I couldn't agree more. Like if you find something that you enjoy and the passion, like you can find these things within real estate. And I like the tech, I like the marketing. The wholesaling was fun too because there were tech and marketing aspects to it. But I
mhm,
really like just that part of it, like you're
yeah,
saying, and it
yeah,
is a legitimate part of it. People will like, oh, you get into real estate, like it's not all what we think it is. Like when you get into this, normally you're starting off as a business owner. A business,
yes,
there are multiple parts to your business that move.
yes. Now you're
And
gonna find this funny because so I have learned. It took me, and honestly, I had a long learning curve. It took me like 10 years to even delegate because I was like, I have to do everything myself because I know what needs to be done, and I wouldn't delegate anything. But what I really enjoy is I really like talking to homeowners in distress, and I really like coaching and helping people become successful. So I hire people to do the marketing and the websites and editing my shows and da da da. And so just a few days ago, I went door knocking. I was like, I miss people. And I went out with my daughter and we door knocked just a week ago. We door knocked like 15 people, but I got 4 deals under contract.
wow.
But I like the people and I
Yeah.
like to go out, and I like to be in the neighborhood, and I really like that. Now, you don't like that at all, but I like that part.
Right.
And then the follow-up, I have someone else do all the rest of the follow-up, is I can't stand following up. It's not a strong suit for me.
See, we would be like a good match because I don't like the people part, right? But I like the follow up, and that's what I published my first book. It was the follow up because I can get the systems to do the follow up where the humans don't have to do the follow up. So we would be
like the perfect match, because I really do. And like, I was just in this woman's house Monday. I'm talking to her, and she's going through this thing. She's losing her house, and I was like giving her options, and I could see like little glimmer of hope in her eyes that she's not going to lose everything. And I was like, oh, I just love helping people. Like, I love it. And I know other people are just like, oh my God, why would you do that? It's like, I like it, and I'm really good at it.
What's your main market? Where are you located?
Well, we buy houses. We buy properties everywhere. We mostly buy. We have a house in Colorado, and we have a house in Florida. So we mostly buy there. We do a lot in Texas because my husband's from Texas, but he's actually originally. So this is how the town started. He's actually from a small town in Iowa called Clinton, Iowa. And I was raised in a small town called West Milton, Ohio. So we were both kind of raised in the country and in the Midwest, and So we go back to all of our high school reunions. Like, we still do that. So anyway, we went back to one of his high school reunions just only 5 years ago. This little town, Clinton, Iowa, is on the Mississippi River. It's like a little, used to be a riverfront town. And it's one of those towns that, like, it looks like time forgot this town. It looks like a time capsule because it was along the riverfront, and it used to be happening and had the downtown and the restaurants. And then out away from town, they built the casino and where they have the concerts, and then like the Applebee's and the Walmart is there. So these little riverfront towns all along Mississippi have just been like, just left. And so we went back, and we have been going to reunions for the whole 20 years we've been together, every 5 years. But the last time we went, I said, this town needs some love. We should look at buying some building, and maybe we can rejuvenate this downtown. So then we talked to some people at the city and found out they have a full city rebeautification program. They have all kinds of grants. It's in an opportunity zone, and it's 3 blocks wide and 3 blocks this way. It's a little town. So then we drove to 3 or 4 of the other riverfront towns that have been restored, and they are hopping. People are antiquing and shopping and going to breweries, and they're just packed. I was like, okay, we're going to turn that town around. So we bought a building, and I know you don't know this about us, but we're like a little OCD with everything we do. Then we bought a second building. Then we're like, okay, we can get 2 more buildings. And then we're like, okay, let's buy another one. And then anyway, within 2 years' time, we have 20 buildings.
Wow.
So I'm talking 3 blocks this way and 3 blocks this way. We have 20 parcels there. I was like, okay, we have to stop. Like, we have to stop. We have to work on what we have. So we're just taking each building one by one and restoring them and filling them full of renting out commercial space and renting out apartments, and we're just renting them all out. And it's super fun. And we looked up some numbers just yesterday. That little town, the value of the properties have gone up 30%.
Wow.
Since last year. And I said, that's because we are making these buildings like awesome.
So mentioning that, what I've learned, and I was telling you my story a little bit on your podcast, what I've learned is that real estate is one of the best and also safest investments you can make. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think?
The thing is, if you go back to the beginning of time, back in the Bible days, the people that were the wealthiest had the most land. I mean, they had goats, and they had sheep, and they had land. And like, you had the most land, you were the wealthy people. And if you look back, and I watch a lot of history shows, like how the United States were created, and like the big 5 families, like the Rockefellers, and all the families. And I watch a lot of stuff like that. So I know you mentioned like about wars and stuff. I watch a lot of stuff that everybody, if you look at Forbes magazine, they post like there's X amount of new millionaires this year. If you look at how they all did it, the highest asset class is always real estate. So since the beginning of time until today, the people that become new millionaires more than any other way, it's through real estate. So whether it's owning it, investing it, controlling it, subject toing it, whatever it is, it's always real estate. So, and there's, there are always the people like the Facebook people and the Google people and the Elon Musk. There are people like that do something else. If you look at all the people combined, it's like 95% of them became wealthy from real estate. So
Yeah.
I always feel like it's the best thing because it's literally what's worked since the day the earth formed.
Yeah, one of the things, and I, like you said, like the Elon Musk and the Zuckerberg, like those people, like they're tech people. You need like a high skill essentially in real estate. I'm not saying that you can't have skills in real estate, but with real estate, you can like be an average Joe or regular person and hit wealth easier than you can with some of those other.
I was fired from Denny's. I worked third shift, 10 at night till 6 in the morning. I was fired in the middle of the night from Denny's. It's like, listen, I graduated high school. I have no education. I never got my real estate license. I don't have a real estate license. I was fired from Denny's and I became a millionaire. And I tell people, I promise you, you can do this. You do not have to be. And I tell people there's nothing special about me. I wasn't like some gifted person that grew up with this wealthy family that knew everything about it. I just learned it and I liked it and I made it into something.
And you learned it over 10 years with no internet. I would, oh my goodness. Sheesh.
Listen, let me tell you something. We didn't have, this is the thing, the first thing of technology, I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus, was GPS. Those old Garmin GPS things.
Yeah.
Because I had to use those big old, I don't know if you ever used one of those old fashioned map books with the whole shit.
I've seen it.
They're so hard to use. And that when that came out and you could plug it into your cigarette lighter in your car, I was like, oh, GPS, this is the best thing in the world. That was like the biggest thing for me because learning neighborhood, I just memorized all the neighborhoods. The map books are terrible. It was so time consuming. And yeah, so that's why, and you and I talked about excuses. So when someone says to me, like, oh, Dwan, I can't do it, I don't have time, I might listen to me. I had to map book it. I had to go to the courthouse. I had to knock on doors. I didn't have anything that you have today. And I became a millionaire before all this technology was in place. So you cannot tell me your list of 45 excuses because I made $1 million before that stuff existed. So I don't want to hear you don't have time. I don't want to hear. Like you do virtual flipping. How does anyone not have time for that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just like you. It's like, girl, talk to the hand. I don't want to hear any excuses. I didn't have any of that.
So with that, I want to turn the next question into two, right?
Yeah.
And so no, first let me ask you, would you say that would you say you enjoy life better with technology or without?
Well, it's really, honestly, it's one of those things for business, definitely with.
Yeah.
But I also feel like we've lost letter writing. We've lost calling people on the phone. Like even my parents, I text my mom every day. I probably only talk to her twice a month, like voice. Mm-hmm. So I miss the simpler times.
Yeah. So personally, you like it without.
Simpler times.
Okay.
But for business, it's like, oh, thank you, Lord, that the internet's there.
Okay.
So you don't know that because you're a millennial. My kids were raised, they had cell phone. Like you don't know what it was like before. But I used to write letters to my aunts and we would have these conversations and talk on the phone. And I kind of miss the personal touch because people have lost the personal touch. And I always feel like real estate is it's a high touch, not necessarily high tech. High tech makes it way easier and way better, but we've lost our personal touch and connections. But as your age, you're the same age as my kids. I have 31, 33, and 35. They don't know it any other way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, oh man, there was a question I wanted to ask, but it slipped my mind.
But for business, tech rocks because you can be on YouTube, Facebook, man, you can do a webinar. You can do a webinar for people in other countries. I've interviewed people in Australia and been on their shows. It's like, I couldn't do that without all the technology. So I love that. But there's a piece of me that remembers being a kid in the 70s and you just rode your bike and you went to your friend's house and you could be gone all day and come home when the street lights came on and people weren't checking on you every 30 seconds.
Would you say, all right, so with that, since we were talking about tech, I want to know, if there was one tech tool that you could not get rid of in your business, what would that one tool be? I absolutely need this. It could be Zoom, it could be a website, YouTube. What would it be?
God, all of it. Literally all of it. I think, gosh,
The
I don't
whole
even know.
internet.
Like the whole thing, because I
The
started
whole
without any
internet.
of it. And I will tell you one thing. When it first, like when Google first started and stuff, it was really amazing. You could just look things up and like, oh my God, there are things. So I
Mhm.
think for my personal business, it would be like the website and the fact someone can get a home study course and I can coach
Okay.
them on the internet. I can help people, so I can have a wider span of helping
Okay.
investors, not just people like in my backyard.
Okay.
So like that portion of it would be like super devastating, because then I'd be like, well, I can only teach the people here in Denver, and instead I can teach people in the whole world. And I always feel like, if I can help 25 homeowners a year, but I can teach 25 people how to help 25 homeowners a year, that many more people are not in that situation where they lose everything, because I was in that situation and it
Yeah.
sucked.
And,
So
and tech
always
tech
go
makes
back.
things technic makes things exponential if you use it correctly. So that's how I always think about it the same way. And we probably wouldn't be here like having this conversation
Yeah, like
or
I wouldn't have a
without the tech.
podcast interview you. Like you'd have to, call and go fly, and so I know that's kind of vague, but I mean, so I guess for me personally, like be my website and like the
Yeah.
streaming ability, because I wouldn't be able to teach people all over the country
Okay.
and work with people if I didn't have the technology. Because when I was in Florida before all this was available, I had a RIA group, but I only worked with the people that lived in South Florida.
Hmm.
That was my entire conference of people. Like, this is all there is, and this is who I work with. So I am a believer. What's that saying? Like, one person can do the work of 10, and two can do the work of like 100. But with the internet, you can talk to 100,000 people at one time.
Yeah. So let's get away from tech and tell us a tool that's not tech related that you absolutely could not get rid of.
So, learning how to talk to people,
Okay.
the scripts, learning how to talk to homeowners, learning how to talk to banks, learning how to have conversations, like how do I get a short sale done, learning how to have a conversation with someone like you, like, hey, explain to me how this works. I feel like the one thing people, when I do a workshop and I say, hey, tell me the number one reason you haven't made it, and they're like, everyone says fear. Number one reason, fear is holding me back. What are you afraid of? Like, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, I don't know. And I feel like I personally don't want to get text messages and do a whole deal that way. I want to talk to people, and scripts are important, because if you don't have the scripts, you're just kind of stumbling over yourself, and you can't guide people down the path to success, whether it's their house or their career. So if I had to keep one thing, it would be the knowledge to know what to say.
Okay. And so you mentioned your websites, and I know we're not here to sell, and you're mentioning it in passing, but how do we get access to your coaching, your scripts, your courses? Like, how do we find that information?
So they just go dwanderful.com, opt
Okay.
in,
Which I
and you'll
have.
get a bunch of autoresponders. I love that. You get an email every other day, and it's like, oh, I love my autoresponders. And then I invite people to do webinars. I do webinars, live webinars, probably just once a month or so. And the nice thing is, I have a little app. It's through you're probably gonna think like she's so far behind, but it's the Mighty Networks. I have a little thing in there called Team Dwanderful. So probably I need to get my own app. But people can ask me questions, and I can stay in touch. I can see them, and so I spend a lot of my time helping other people. But I also spend a lot of my time with my family, my friends, building my buildings and doing my things in Iowa. But I spend a lot of my time still helping homeowners, because those are the pieces I enjoy the most.
Yeah, I
Everything
understand.
else, taxes, paperwork, all building website, all of it.
And,
Somebody else.
and so you mentioned like I might laugh, and the thing I have to say that I admire about you, and it makes sense, that's why you're successful, is that you get it done. Right? Doesn't matter if it's not the prettiest. Doesn't matter if I don't understand the technology. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to deliver a message. I'm going to do something. Right? Most people do nothing. So I don't
Good
laugh.
job.
If somebody does something, I appreciate that, because so many people are not doing anything. It is not only harming that individual, it's harming the people that they could help as well.
Yeah.
So
So a few years ago, I was like, I probably need to get an app. Everybody's got an app. And then I started reading about apps. I was like, oh my God, I got to hire the one who you hire. And then I found this company, it's called Mighty Network. And within that, you get your little group, Team Dwanderful, and people that buy my programs, they're fulfilled in the app. And they can ask me questions. And it's like, okay, I probably need to have like my own QR code. I need a few things, but I still made it so it's accessible to people without them like bombarding my phone or calling me or emailing me to death. So I just go on my little thing, I tap it every day, see who's got a question. And so I know you're a super tech guy. You're probably, oh my gosh, she uses Mighty Network. But you know what? It solves its purpose like 3 years ago. And now I'm working towards having like a little bit more tech on my side. But it still solved the problem that I needed, which is a way for people to ask me questions without calling me.
So I'm not making fun of your
And
tech at all.
in my email, because it's like, dude, I can't have 5,000 emails a day. You can't call me all day. I
Yeah.
can't do that. It has to be controlled over here where I can do it in my time, and my time is midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning.
I'm telling you, I admire what you're doing. I don't care, Mighty Networks. I don't care if it was text message. I don't care if it was direct mail letters. I don't care, because it's something getting done. And there's a quote that I like to say, like I'm a teacher too, like you. I'm an instructor,
Yeah,
a coach.
you are.
I'm not 500,000, but I got my little crew. And there's a quote that I always like to say, results over reasons, execution over excuses, progress over perfection. Like that's what you want to do. Like you got to get something done, right? Version, and then I got a coach, right? My coach always says version 1 is better than version none. Some people have nothing.
They have
They have
nothing.
nothing out there. So I admire that about you. The next question I have is share with. Go ahead.
So like one of the reasons like with my network that I like is because I can answer people's questions. I used to answer people's questions on Skype. I can do it
Okay.
on my time because I am not a person that will say, okay, we're gonna coach and you have me from 1 to 1:30, and then the next person has me this time, because I am unwilling to tie up my time like that. So everything I do, if you have questions, you text it in the group and I will get back to you on my time. So I learned a long time ago, which I know you know this, but your time is really your most valuable asset. But I don't think people appreciate their time until they start getting older. Like when you turn 50,
Yeah.
you're like, wow, I'm 50. I'm like halfway there. It's like, damn, I'm 60. Like I'm on the back end of everything. And I learned, because I used to give my time away. People could call me and ask me questions, and I would talk on the phone for 8 hours a day. And I was like, you know what? I'm not doing that anymore. So everyone has to work around my time. And I like to talk and do stuff at night. And so I do my things. And so I use those things. And you'll learn, and you're knowing it now. If you make yourself accessible all the time, you have no time.
I agree. And that kind of leads us into like our next thing. So I'm glad you interjected, right? Share with us, we talked about some of this, but share with us a productivity hack that you have. Like what's a productivity hack you think that would be useful to everyone?
Be more specific.
So a good example.
I'll delegate everything. So
okay. Yeah, that's a good example. Another good example for me is like, I'm like, all right, I need to finish this video and I need to finish it like fast. So I'll like speed up the time on the video so I can hear it a little bit faster and get the information out. A productivity hack could just be time blocking. It could be meditating, like you share with us.
So I would say then just having my time. So I am not a super like, okay, from 8 to 10 I do this and I do this, I do this, I do this. I'm more like, hey, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursdays from noon to 5, I'll podcast, I'll do this, I'll do that. But the other days, that's not even on my radar because it's not what's happening on those days. So I am more about these are the days I'll do this, because I'm kind of like, once I start something, I have been known to stay up like all night long typing or writing or doing something and finish that project. So I have had to train myself, like these are the days I'll do videos. These are the days I'll do other things. And I designate days to things so my mind is in that groove of that day.
Okay. So
time blocking, but it's like day blocking.
I got you, and I think I work like that myself, but I keep trying to squeeze it down into hours. So I'm going to consider that, because some days I have, all right, today is all books, today is all training, today is all like I'm going to reconsider the way I do it.
I used to do it like that because I listen and read all these books, and they say
Right.
these are 7 habits of highly effective people, and this is what you have to do. And then I started doing that, and like it took me a decade to realize that doesn't work for me.
Okay.
That doesn't mean it doesn't work for everybody else. It doesn't work for Dwan. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, these are the days, and I know it's like my podcast days. It's 12 to 5 on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Those are the days, and my mind is up. I get up, I do my hair, I do my makeup, I do my stuff, and I'm into it because it's like woohoo. And it's not just one randomly in the middle of the day that takes out my day. And then on another day I do this, and on another day I do that, and another day I do that. So I block days.
Okay.
And not a video day. There's no hair. There's no makeup. I'm in sweats. I'm in a t-shirt. I'm not going to get online and look like I didn't even brush my hair. And so I started more of taking days.
Okay.
My mind is then like, okay, like today I was like, ooh, today's a podcasting day. So my mind is like, woohoo, we're excited and our energy's up because that's what we're doing all day today. And so the time blocking, like doing this from the morning, and then you work out for this hour, and you eat in this half hour, and take a shower in this half hour, and then you poop in this half hour, and then you drink a glass of water in this half hour. I can't do that. That just doesn't work in my life.
All right. So I was asking you like a lot of business centric questions. Now I'm going to ask you some personal questions. Then we're going to get to, we're in real estate, right? The closing tables. I'm going to ask you some closing questions. Then we're going to get out of here. So personal questions. What do people misunderstand about Dwan the most?
I'm really, it's weird. I am very nice to people, and everyone's like, oh my God, she's so nice. But if someone like takes advantage of me or hurts my family or like kind of does me dirty, I am like a freaking block of ice. Like, you are done forever. There's no coming back and crossing the line. Once you cross this line, you're on the other side of the fence for life. And I don't think people expect that. But when you're speaking, people like, just anything. Take your time slot. Try to, sell your customers. Do something else. And I'm like, oh my God, did you just seriously do that to me? So I have the ability to just like, here's the line, and you can't come back. I know that may not be right and not good, and I pray and I forgive everybody, but I learned a saying a long time. My dad used to say this. He says, if you screw me once, shame on me. But if you screw me twice, shame on me. No, if you screw me once, shame on you. But if you screw me twice, shame on me. Meaning that person, you forgave them, you let them back in, and they screwed you again, and it's like, okay, well, now you knew better.
Yeah.
So most people don't think I'm so cut and dry, which I am. I'm a very this is the line and that's it. And so some people are like, oh my gosh, she's like cold. I'm like, no, I'm not cold. I'm realistic.
All right.
So that would probably be the number one thing. And then I think people are sometimes surprised that I just give so much of myself and so much help and talk and energy, and I will help anyone through any situation and some tragedy. And I'm really, I actually consider myself to be a very wise woman. I studied the Bible for decades, and I'm a very wise, and people can come to me with literally any crazy thing, and I will help them out.
Thank you. And you touched on a little bit of this, but let's see. Tell us about your favorite childhood memory.
Gosh, it's funny. I have so many. I grew up in the country. I mean, I guess it was outside Dayton, Ohio. So it's not like the dead of the country, but we had 10 acres and we had like horses and a cow and a pig and chickens and a garden. And I think my best childhood memories was, and I know it sounds weird, but we would always be out like working and I hate working in the garden, but my cousins would come and we'd be out there picking the peaches or picking the watermelons, and we would get in these fights where we take like old rotten watermelon and peach and like throw them at each other. And I'm talking every summer for 5 years. My cousins and I, at some point in the summer, would be covered head to toe, and like rotten apples, rotten peaches, rotten beans, rotten tomatoes, rotten watermelons, and it's so gross, but those were like some of my favorite things because we would just get out there and be rolling in the dirt and fighting and throwing shit at each other and covered. And parents were always like, wah! But we had so much fun as kids doing it, because now I can't imagine picking up and like whopping a rotten tomato at somebody, but we were like country kids.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
It was
Yeah.
so fun. Oh my God, the peaches were the worst. If you get a peach like hit like top my own cousin, he'd throw it and I mean it hit you hard. But then it's like rotten and terrible. So we literally, when we were setting out to do serious things, we always turned it into something that ended up playful and we always got in trouble. But we kept doing it.
Okay.
And it
The
is really fun.
the next question, what's your biggest failure and what did you learn from that experience?
Oh man, my biggest failure. Well, I don't ever consider anything to be a failure. I personally, if I do something that doesn't work out, I
Uh-huh.
consider it to be a lesson. And so I
Okay.
have to honestly say, like even with my husband when we got divorced and he took off, I was like, oh, I failed at marriage. But then, I married Bill and like I succeeded at marriage. So honestly, I know that maybe even sounds conceited, but I don't consider anything that I've
Okay.
done to be a failure because now if I didn't learn the lesson from it, then maybe I would have like a list of
Yes.
regretting failures.
Yes.
But everything I've done wrong, I learned from that and I try not to repeat. So I think if
Okay.
you do a lot of wrong things and you don't fix it, then maybe you do have a lot of failures.
Uh-huh.
But even my divorce was terrible and I did so many drugs. It was terrible. And my sister and I got thrown in jail one time. It was terrible. And I cheated on one of my first husband. Like it was terrible. Like I've done terrible things, but I learned. And so I don't really feel like I have any failures.
Okay.
I have a lot of lessons. That's
If
why
if
I'm
you
a wise person.
if you could be remembered for one thing, what would it be?
I don't know. I think if I was remembered for one thing, I'd want to be remembered for being like a great mom and a great grandma and a great Mimi. And I'd want to be remembered for those things.
Okay.
If it was business related, I would want to be known for literally changing people's lives and taking people that stuck in a job, didn't know what to do. They worked with me, they became a millionaire, and they created generational wealth. That's what I focus on, generational wealth. And I think if I was remembered in business, it would be that I created generational wealth for other families that never thought they could do it because I never thought I could do it either.
Thank you. And so next, I didn't tell you, but these questions are meant to stomp you. So I'm gonna ask these questions. These are value add / bonus questions, and then we'll do the closing table. So the first question is, how can someone add immediate value to your business?
How can someone add value to my business?
Immediate value to your business.
I don't know. I think gosh, I don't know. See, I'm kind of a little bit stuck on that because at this
Yeah.
particular moment, I have such a great team in my
Uh-huh.
business. I feel like things are really going great right now.
Okay.
Now, that is because I let some people go. I got some other people. So at this very second, I feel like my business is going good in all the areas. I think if someone was
Okay.
like, "Hey, I can give you $500,000 tomorrow and you can buy more buildings," that would be like, okay, that'd be great value immediately.
Okay, good. So that's a good answer. And the question is meant to stop you. So one of my answers is like whatever I'm doing or promoting at the time. So a good example, right? Just to let you know, because I'm about to ask the same question in a different way. Good example is like, hey, go buy a book, or hey, go buy the new course I just released, or hey, leave me a review on Google. Those are like immediate ways to.
All of those things are great too. People can do all of those things too. I'm at a place right this very moment
Mhm.
where I feel like because when I go through these growth spurts, and it's always has to do with technology. So I honestly, and it's so funny because you're in tech. A year ago, I would be like, oh, I freaking hate technology because I
Mhm.
have to learn new things. So I decided, I caught myself one day. I said, you know what? The fact that I say that all the time puts up a block for me trying to learn new
Yes.
things. So now every day I wake up, I go, I love technology. I love the computer. I love all the things. I love it so much. I'm open. Everything I watch, I learn, I absorb it. And since I started doing that, I started my own page, YouTube page. I did a bunch of things that normally I'd be like, oh, I hate this. So I stopped saying anything that I don't like and say, I love this. Even like I take medication. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. Now, I never say to anyone, I have rheumatoid arthritis, because I'm not claiming a disease. I say I was diagnosed with this. So now when I take my medication, I'm like, thank you that this medicine is available to help me feel better, because without it, I would be in so much pain. So I have learned in just the last few years myself to take the things I don't like and be thankful for what they do for me.
Okay. So the next question is very similar to the first one, but this time we're asking like long term, right? So how can someone add long term value to you or your business? So it could be you, like your personal life, or it can be your business.
I think long-term value would be establishing some business relationships with people that want to do like big things, like
Okay.
let's buy a hotel, let's buy a
Okay.
town. So I think for my business, my long-term goal would be to work with people that have bigger goals. And when you say like let's buy a town, they're like, oh my God. They're like, oh yeah. So
Okay.
I would say people that are more bigger minded.
Okay. And the next question, we touched on it a little bit, but what is the biggest challenge you're currently facing in your business?
I know it sounds weird to say it, but with the team I have this very minute, I feel like all my ducks are in a row. Now, I
Okay.
could be completely saying something different. I'll tell you one thing that's going to start. So I'm going to change my podcast platform. So then I'm
Okay.
going to have this learning curve where I'm going to be sitting in front of my computer going, I hate this. No, I love this. So I'm getting ready to make a few changes in technology that
Okay.
will be learning curves for me. And not that and everyone has to have learning curves, but I like things to be like this way, and I like change, but I don't like change when it forces me to have to go through this giant learning curve. So,
Okay.
so I don't know. That would be
All
it.
right. So we're at the closing table. That means we're going to ask you some questions to close it out. And I want to shape this first one around. I'm going to ask you it twice. So you have 3 books. And the question is, what are 3 books you recommend to the audience and why? So what I would like to do is I would like you to tell us about your 3 books. And then if you could think of 3 other books that would be good for the audience.
Okay.
How's that?
So my first book I wrote was called Sale Pre-Foreclosure Investing. And that's a book for real estate investors, people to learn how to do short sales. And I'm actually working on with the publishing company to do a second volume on that, because
Okay.
with the market, short sales are getting ready to go crazy again. And my second book was How to Sell Your House When It's Worth Less Than the Mortgage. And I wrote that book for homeowners in distress. Like, these are some things you can do to help yourself out of your situation. And then SuccessOnomics, I was one of, I think, 16 people. And we all submitted chapters, and we wrote a book with Steve Forbes, and I was chosen to write the chapter on real estate investing. So I was pretty excited about that. Now, books that I have read in the past. So I started reading and going to like Tony Robbins seminars and stuff in my late 20s, because I like all the woohoo, rah, rah. I love all that sort of stuff. So I just remember reading some books back then that I have reread that I thought were helpful. Things like I remember one of the greatest books I loved was The Millionaire Next Door. Have you read that book, The Millionaire Next Door?
I have. Yes.
It's such a good book. I'm that person. I drive a Hummer. My Hummer is like 15 years old. Unless my car dies or blows up, I keep the same car forever. I don't live in like the fanciest, biggest houses ever, but I live in a nice house. Like, my house is 7,000 square feet. It's certainly a nice house, but it's not a palace, because it's like, So I loved that book, The Millionaire Next Door, because that was the first time I read and realized, okay, I am actually a millionaire, and I'm not flashy, and I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm this guy. So that was a really good book for me, because it was kind of like an epiphany. Because my friends were like, you should have a better car. Why don't you wear a robe? Why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? And I'm like, I don't know why I don't. So I loved that book, because I actually saw myself in that book.
Okay. And
I think I'm
that
not
book,
the person. I don't want to have a Porsche, and I don't want a Lamborghini. I don't want all that stuff. I don't know. I'm not.
that book aligns with what we said earlier about, you don't have to be like super smart to like be in real estate. Like that Millionaire Next Door book. It's like they drive, I think, I can't remember, but it was a truck. I think it was like Ford F-150. Yes. Yes. And I was like, wow, this is okay. So I don't have to be that way.
Yes.
To, you know, and
I loved that book because it took pressure off of me, because people around me were like, you have a RIA group, you should have a bigger house, you should have a better car. I'm like, but I don't know why. I'm not trying to keep up with the Joneses. Like, that's not me. It's just not me. It's just not. And no, I mean, I buy nice clothes. I buy expensive clothes. And if I'm buying something, I buy the best thing that there is. But I don't have to be the flashiest person. And with pink hair, I guess I am sort of flashy, but just in a different way. So I love that book because it really resonated with taking the pressure off of me to have to look like people think I should have a plane. I should have all these things. Like, but I don't want to have all those things. So,
Okay.
So that I love that book. I remember I read a book recently. This is by Joyce Meyer. She's a preacher. It's called The Battlefield of the Mind. And it's really about your mindset and things, but it's based off of biblical verses. So it's called The Battlefield of the Mind. I think I'm reading it through like for my 4th time right now. And some people are like, oh, it's a Bible book, but it's all scripturally based on your mindset and overcoming things and goals and changing how you think and how you view things. And it's about your mindset, but it's using scripture. So I'm reading it right now. Again, I think I'm on like my 4th time because every time I read it, like I hear something new. And then another couple books I really liked way back was Think and Grow Rich. I love those. How to Make Friends and what was it? Influence People. I've read all of those kind of books. So when I read anything now, and I'm not saying I don't need self-help because I do, but when I read stuff now, I'm more interested in reading just things that are
practical.
My favorite TV show is The Walking Dead. So
okay.
If I'm going to read something, I'm going to read like a mystery or something like that. And not that I don't want to read self-help, but I've read them for so many decades that my mind is sort of like burned out on those kind of books right now. So I'm more apt to read a romance novel or something like that.
Okay. All right, share. What's the last mystery or romance novel you've read?
The one I just finished. It's like I'm almost embarrassed to say it because people are like, you need to be reading self-help books. It's like, but really, all the time?
Yeah, you can't be business all the time. We gotta,
I read one called it's called like The Live-In Son-in-Law.
Okay.
And it was stupid and dumb and it's funny.
It sounds that way, but it
was entertaining.
Yeah. Okay.
I find that I need a little bit more entertainment. Instead of so much always working on things. So,
I kind of don't want to ask you the next question, but I think you can get something for us. What are 3 podcasts you recommend to the audience and why?
Well, yours.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Mine, because
yes,
I'm wonderful and I'm amazing. And I like listening to like the murder mystery podcasts and stuff.
I know about their podcast, ironically.
Oh my God, it's called I lost the name right now. It's so good. It's like what the hell is it called?
Those 2 women?
Yes. I lost the name. I know it because I listen to it all the time.
I know what you're talking about.
I know I should be answering a bunch of real estate people, and I do listen to a lot of real estate podcasts, but I think I'm just at a point in my life where I've done so much studying and so much learning and so much, I feel like my mind needs a little bit of a rest. So I watch Forensic Files. I watch serial killers. I listen to the True Crimes podcast, and I listen to things that are more distracting, but like in a fun way. I love The Walking Dead. Yeah, Walking Dead. It's like, dude, I'm not missed one show in 9 seasons. So I read dystopian books, The Hunger Games, all that stuff. I read The Hunger Games, Twilight. Like I read all that stuff because it's fun and it's imaginative, and I could see living in worlds like that. So and I know people are like, you should read more business. I'm like, I'm in business all the time.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
And I certainly need to keep reading things like that. But sometimes I think you just need a break.
Yeah, we got to mix it up. It's okay to have fun once in a while. Like
my mind is in a phase right now, especially with everything happening with my husband. Everything's so serious all the time. Because he's got port and he had chemo and he had and everything's so serious all the time. But my mind just needs a break where I can just like go off into some other land and think about that. So I'm in a non-educational phase of just trying to just let my mind go someplace else.
Yes, ma'am. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. The next question. What's one question you wish I had asked you, and how would you have answered?
Gosh, I don't know. You have asked me. I have to tell you, I'm on a lot of shows. This has been one of the best podcasts I've ever been on. Your questions
Oh,
are really good. Honest to God, I swear, I'm not just trying to like blow you. I have like love in my heart for you. Because I love your story and I love everything about what you do. And you have asked me a lot of questions no one's ever asked me. Actually, the last 4 or 5 questions, no one's ever asked me any of those questions.
okay.
And I was just like, wow, okay, I got to really think about this for a minute because these are not just off the cuff. I'm trying to answer like real questions. So I'm going to say that the questions are the best. You are literally the best.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And the last thing I have for you, where can listeners find out more about you online?
At Dwanderful.com, or they can just Google the word Dwanderful, Dwanderful, and they'll find everything. But
All right.
seriously, you asked me about like memories and books and investing, and I can't think of any question that I thought, oh man, I wish I could have talked about that. So I feel like I got to talk about all the things that I like and that are important to me. And yeah, honestly, I there's not a question.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I lied a little bit. So I do have another question for you. It ties into your podcast. And it's not
Okay.
really it's not really a question. It's word of wisdom. Give us one word. It's got to
Oh,
be one word.
I did that to you.
Yes.
I
One word of wisdom.
say tenacity.
Tenacity. And just like you asked me, go ahead and expound upon that.
People have to just have a little bit more oomph
Mhm.
in their life, and they have to stop being afraid of failure and stop being afraid and just period. And I think people have to just have a little more tenacity and do more things and try more things and eat new food and go new places and learn new businesses and learn and just have a little more oomph in your life, because I feel like we're living in a time right now where everything is just all about politics and are we in a depression and what's happening, and there's so many negative things in the world. So I think if people would just be a little more tenacious and really seek out the good and the fun and the wonderful things that the world has and stop focusing on all the other stuff.
Dwan, this has
Yeah.
been the longest and most wonderful experience I've had. We've been together for about 2.5, 90, 20. I don't know how long we've been together, but
We've
it
been
went
together for
fast.
hours.
And yeah, and I've really enjoyed myself. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to do our exit, and I want to talk to you a little bit, and then we're going to, go from
And
there.
really,
Thank you
you
so
really
much.
are a rock star. This is the most fun because most is just like, everything's so serious. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah,
Let's
I
have some
know, and
fun. You're
people always
fun.
tell me, Jerome, you're so serious. I am serious, but I know how to be fun too. So
No, but you're
yeah,
fun.
yeah, absolutely.
You're
So
fun. And then I was talking about other people, not you. You are serious, but you know what? You're serious, and like you are
yes,
serious, but like in a good way. Like the things that you are
yes,
passionate about, you are serious about. And you learn and you educate and you train, but then you're super fun too. And like we talked about all kinds of crazy stuff. And
yes.
so I think you're like the perfect combination.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. We're going to exit, and then I want to talk to you for a little bit. All right.
Okay.
All right.